Good afternoon, friends. I extend a warm welcome to all the invitees to take out time and attend this launch event of Trade Receivable Exchange in India. I also welcome Mrs. Charulata Kar, General Manager RBI, for gracing the occasion as a chief guest. It's a matter of pride for Mind Solutions that we've been assigned the responsibility to set up and achieve the objectives of trade receivable exchange financing for the country. This exchange is a novel idea envisaged by RBI to support the industry and its participants. If we look back globally, trade receivable financing platforms have mushroomed in the last 8 to 10 years, and they are very commonly called as a part of fintech industry. In this, it is a relationship between one bank, one large corporate, and its suppliers, where a platform is servicing the suppliers of a large corporate through this one bank. RBI has carved out the innovativeness of having multiple banks on this exchange to service the large corporates and their suppliers. So it's a program of many to many. That means multiple banks servicing multiple suppliers. This has given this platform a new shape of being a marketplace for trade receivable financing. Further, the exchange has been enabled to comprehensively manage the settlement of the transactions that have happened during the day, which means that the payment to suppliers by the financiers and the collection of amount due from the corporates on the due date is enabled by the exchange. As a result, the corporate buyers, financiers, and suppliers get a single point of contact, which is the exchange, in this many-to-many relationship. These unique points are being appreciated by the service providers globally, and this will become the future in many other countries in times to come. With this, it brings me immense pleasure to announce the launch of Mynd Online National Exchange today. We call this exchange as M1. This is going to be built on the fundamentals of pursuing solution-based approach for clients, adapt with innovation and flexibility. We believe M1's product and service will be best in class and will bring the needful change in the financing landscape in trade business. It will provide the needful impetus for the enhancement to the MSME sector, which is essential for India's growth. I would like to mention that M1 teams have worked through the past 15 months to make this eventful day happen today. We have onboarded 8 corporate clients, their suppliers for transacting on the exchange from today. The banks will also bid for the best rate of interest for the invoices of these suppliers. The interest rate offered by the banks will be basis the credit rating of the large corporates. As the suppliers will select the best bid, the exchange will create a settlement file for transfer of funds from the banks to these suppliers. All this process of payment to the suppliers will be completed within 2 days of the supplier submitting his invoice on the exchange. The teams have also worked to onboard financiers, and for this we have engaged with multiple banks. I am personally grateful for the support extended by the entire banking sector, and in particular IndusInd Bank, IDFC Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, ICICI Bank, and DBS Bank. It's an experience to see the speed and the openness with which these banks have embraced the new idea and the technology behind it. I also take this opportunity to express the gratitude to the leadership team of Department of Payment and Settlement System at RBI for their support and guidance to make this project go live today. Without their faith and confidence in Mind Solutions team, it would not have been possible to achieve it. I express my heartfelt thanks to the entire M1 team, our settlement banker IndusInd Bank, NPCI team, for the hard work and support to make this happen. I will now request my colleague Ramesh Bisht, who is the CFO on M1 Exchange, to present the functionalities of the exchange. Ramesh has been involved in this project right from the inception stage. I request Ramesh to come and take it forward.
Thank you, Sundeep, for giving the opportunity to talk about trades. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will be taking you through in the next few slides about the overall concept and the functionality of the exchange, what all offerings and the services will be provided by the exchange, what all kind of benefits will be accrued to all the participants who will be acting and the transacting on the platform. So this slide covers basically the impact or the advantages of the M1 exchange on the overall eco space. First and the foremost uniqueness of the advantage of the exchange is it makes the availability of the finance to the MSME basis the credit rating of the large buyer. Because today there is a lot of challenge which MSME face because of their low credibility, and here they are going to get a competitive finance because the rating is being used of the buyer there. Second thing is because it is a digital concept, they are going to be self-service platform which will be available. This platform is going to be having the capability of being integrated with the IT systems of the bank, of the buyer, of the supplier, which makes it more digital in terms of flow of the information. The third important aspect of this exchange is this particular exchange we have developed while it was very well outlined by the RBI. There are a lot of deliberation which happened in the market, which we carried out with a lot of experts in the field of legal, finance, corporate and technology. So overall, this exchange serves as a MSME ecospace, and MSME being one of the critical segment in the growth of the economy, it is imperative it will help in the overall country's growth. So essentially there are going to be three participants who are the key participant. One is the supplier, who is going to be MSME supplier. Buyers can be large corporates, PSU or the government companies. The financer can be banks and the NBFC factor companies which are registered as a factor with the RBI. So exchange will be providing the gross two kind of category of the products. One is the factoring and second is the reverse factoring. So here we are showing a depiction of the reverse factoring where the buyer locks in the invoice and seller locks in into the system and accepts the invoice. Once both the confirmation and the acceptance are there, exchange converts it into the factoring unit and publishes it to the financer for the bidding. Financer comes and they do their own due diligence and then they take a call basis the credit comfort on the buyer and quotes a bid basis the credibility of the buyer and the relationship with the seller. Then seller and the buyer accepts the bid basis who is bearing the interest rate. If it is a interest rate being borne by buyer, then the bid is accepted by buyer or otherwise supplier. Once the bid is accepted, then on the very next working day, the amount is settled, which means the fund transfer gets transferred from financer account to supplier account, and on the due date, then the funds are transferred from buyer account to financer account. This settlement or the fund transfer happens actually using the NPCI's NASH mechanism, which is designed and approved by RBI to carry out this particular settlement. So what all things this exchange is providing, I will be covering few important aspects on this slide. One is this is a solution based approach. As I said, there are a lot of inputs which have been taken from various participants, including the large corporates, the banks. We have taken and gathered various such inputs and then we have been using that as a feedback while we were developing and improving our system. High availability of liquidity, because today even in the current vendor financing solution or the supply chain solution, even the corporates who are availing it, there is availability of 1-2 banks or a very combination of few limited banks, while it will be providing a higher liquidity in terms of there are going to be higher number of financer who will be registered and quoting the bid against the factoring unit. Focus on ease of use, robustness and scalability, because that's the main advantage of the being the digital. It gives kind of like transparency, it gives the speed, it gives the overall ease in the documentation. So these are few features which are either today happens manually, or there is a lot of cost involved in doing these actually activities which are carried out more in a digital fashion in this particular exchange. So one is the KYC and onboarding, which includes AML checking, which includes various other checking about the all the KYC documentation being provided by the clients. Registration of invoice and acceptance. This section again includes like the hosting of the invoice and the acceptance of that happens on the exchange only, which makes it faster in approval of the invoices in comparison to the like how it happens today when supplier goes to a buyer and gets it stamped from the buyer office. Third is the online bidding process. It is a bidding process. All the financer will be able to see whatever factoring units are available. Basis their own due diligence, they will be quoting the bid. That gives the advantage of better rate discovery in terms of better and competitive pricing. Automated settlement, that is another leg, which is like after once the transaction happens, the file is generated by exchange and it gets settled using the RBI approved NASH mechanism, which is run by NPCI. It all happens like there is no push mechanism which is used by the participant. It is more on a pull method, whereby like accounts are debited and credited more on a real time or more on a automated basis. Transaction monitoring and reporting. All the transactions which are getting covered, which are being carried out by the participant, they will be able to see the audit trail of that. They will be able to see like the further detail around that for their internal reporting purpose as well. Online real-time dashboard for each participant, which includes the financer, buyer and the supplier. There is a dashboard which is made available while you log in into the M1 portal, which helps in having a control on the status of the transactions being carried out. What is the status of the transaction which have been done, what is the status where the actions are needed, just to have a summary, and then there are like further benchmarking analysis available to the participant. Help desk support, there would be an online support available for raising an online complaint or the request or the inquiries, while help desk call center will also be available. The details are available on the M1 website. At every step, the related alerts and notification are going to the respective participant, informing them about the transaction which has taken place and the alerts in terms of like when the due date is approaching, so that they are aware about like the payment is falling due. This section covers the benefit to each of the participant on the exchange. So for the seller, it is a easy and fast working capital finance, because today it becomes very difficult for MSME to get a finance from the market because of the tedious work paper documentation process. It is without recourse, without any collateral. So it is kind of like comparatively easy accessible finance for MSME. Documentation, most of the documentation are one time only, and which gives it a speed, it expedited the overall process. Then faster realization of receivable. Once he accepts the bid, very next day, next working day, the funds are transferred into its account. For the buyer, again, there are a lot of benefits which accrue to buyers as well. It is a digital platform which makes it lower administration cost for the vendor financing and settlement. Today also, when they are availing this service, there are a lot of documentation which takes place between the bank and the buyer. That is reduced to large extent by this mechanism. Off-sheet balance sheet transactions, because the it is not shown in the balance sheet of the buyer, hence their working capital limits are not blocked. Support to vendor ecosystem, by this having this particular like registered on the exchange, they can help in the financing for their critical vendors also, which helps in their continuity in their production as well, and overall satisfaction of the vendor ecospace as well. For the financer, one of the benefit for them is PSL asset portfolio opportunity. As per RBI notification, all the transactions which will take place on the exchange that will qualify for the PSL. Reduced operational cost, because today there are high cost in terms of operation cost for the client acquisition and client relationship, which is incurred by the banks, which is reduced to large extent. Ease of operation with minimum documentation. Again, for financer also there is a one-time documentation which takes place, and rest of the stuff is taken care by exchange, while for the financer there is a portfolio and business opportunity which is available at a single button of click. So this is like all about at a high level about the concept, and we are very hopeful considering like our feedbacks which have been in the market while we were interacting with various banks, various corporates, various suppliers. We feel there are a lot of acceptance already in the market, and we see great future for this, and we look forward to all the participants to participate and make it a success. Thank you.
Thanks, Ramesh, for giving this insights about M1 Exchange. Now I'd like to invite Sunil. Sunil is a CTO, and he's the architect of the entire software and the platform development. Sunil has an experience of doing this multiple times in the past, and he has taken all the hard work in making this happen go live today. So Sunil is going to present about the feature and the functionalities of the platform, and the security insights about how robust the platform is, how secure and how confidential the data is. Sunil is going to present. Over to Sunil.
Thank you, Sundeep. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be presenting the security insights and the design considerations which have been taken in designing this platform. So to start with the security considerations, I'll be covering the infrastructure and application level security considerations which have been made in the design of this platform. Starting with the infrastructure. So the entire data on the platform is completely encrypted. So any data that is stored on the platform is encrypted and is not even accessible to the administrators or our internal teams. There is a multi-factor authentication which is required to access any of our systems. There are firewalls which have been deployed. So there are multiple firewalls. There is a multi-layer architecture which has been considered. So there are different layers for web application, database, and management servers. There are multiple intrusion prevention and detection systems which have been configured. And then there is a syslog server where all the logs of the platform are consolidated and kept for any later reference purposes. The data in motion, again, is completely encrypted using TLS 1.1 and TLS 1.2 protocols. And the entire platform has been designed with a zero RPO within the DC and a very short RPO between the DC and DR. So in the application also, apart from the security which the infrastructure provides, the application has multiple layers of security. For example, in addition to the infrastructure encryption, the password itself is encrypted using a one-way hashing. There are strong authentication and authorization controls on the platform, and any user can only access what he's entitled to and not anyone else's data. So there is a concept of maker and checker on the platform. So any data which is entered by any user is validated by a checker. Then any action performed by external user or an internal user is audited and can be referenced for any legal references at a later point in time. The solution has been designed based on OWASP guidelines and the RBI recommendations. It's not just the infrastructure and application, but also our processes which have been audited by the CISA and found in accordance with as was specified by RBI. Moving over to the risk controls which have been implemented on the platform. So So there are very strong KYC and AML checks which are being performed on the platform, and these are in accordance with the RBI guidelines which have been recently released for this year. There are multiple fraud checks. We perform checks for associated companies. We perform AML checks. We perform KYC checks of the directors of the companies to find out if there are any companies which are associated and if they are transacting. So these all controls are managed by our compliance team. Then there is a multi-limit authorization which is defined in the system. So any person authorizing a transaction has a limit defined, and he can only approve a transaction up to his authorized limit. Then we have algorithms for scoring the customer's behavior on the platform, and which is based on his external ratings, his behavior on the platform, the way he makes his payments, whether those are delayed, made in time, and if at all it is paid back later, that also impacts his scoring. From a scalability perspective, also the application has been designed taking multiple considerations. So the complete application has been distributed or defined as multi-component system. So there, so that the components which are taking more load can be scaled up by distributing it to multiple servers. Then we have load balancers to distribute the load between different servers. And in fact, the database itself has been created as a multi-node always-on cluster. So the database load can also be distributed across nodes. Moving on to the usability and automation perspectives which have been considered in the platform design. So, the application has a very intuitive UI which has been developed in consultation with the UX experts. And then we have taken care to have minimal data entry being done by people by integrating the platform with buyers and sellers ERP so that the information can be directly pulled out from there. Similarly, we integrate with financier systems also to push and pull information directly rather than someone keying in the information by seeing it on our platform. Then the invoices which are uploaded on our platform, so there is an optical character recognition or OCR which is performed on these invoices, and then this data is again used for verification of the invoices which have been uploaded by the seller or the buyer. So this covers all the functions and features and the security controls which have been implemented at the application and infrastructure. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sunil, for providing the insights about the security aspects and the robustness of the platform. I would now like to invite Mrs. Charulata Kar, General Manager with RBI, to share her insights on the TREADS platform and the objectives RBI look to achieve on this. Ma'am and her team has helped us in setting this up from scratch and setting up the procedure guidelines and making this platform more comprehensive and robust. I will request her to grace the honor of inaugurating the exchange today. Over to you, ma'am.
At the outset, let me congratulate all of you on the event of the launch of M1, Mynd Online National Exchange. The journey to reach this event has been quite a long one and also a very fruitful and eventful one. The journey all began with the announcement made in late September 2013 that we want to have an exchange to facilitate the receivables of the MSMEs. Subsequently, the Reserve Bank put out a concept paper on trade receivables exchange in March 2014. Based on the feedback we got and the interaction with the stakeholders we had, then we put out a very formal structure of the draft guidelines for trade receivables discounting system. Later on, we finalized these guidelines. It was put out in July 2014 as a draft guidelines, and then we finalized the guidelines in December 2014. Then of course began the process of receiving applications, processing them, going through a deep process of scrutinizing these applications, and finally by November 2015, in principle approval was given to 3 entities. one of them being Mind Solutions. The other two were Axis Bank and a combine of NSEIL and SIDBI. While SIDBI has already set up the Receivables Exchange of India, Mind Solutions has is going to launch the platform today. I am sure most of you gathered here are familiar with the features of TREADS, but let me just recount a couple of very important features. First of all, a platform like this is quite unique. You might not find too many parallels in many other countries. So that is a fact that we need to take pride of, and this could happen because of the collective interest displayed by all the stakeholders. Now, TREADS as a platform facilitates the discounting of both invoices as well as bills of exchange. It's a multi-financier platform in the sense that while there are many MSMEs as sellers on the one side, there are different kind of corporate buyers including government departments on the other side. Going forward from a single financial platform, we have envisaged a situation in the first phase where multiple financiers can bid for discounting or factoring or reverse factoring of these invoices and bills pertaining to MSME sellers. Apart from this, there are many other features which take care of automation of this entire process. The three entities to whom in principle approval was given, they have worked very hard to ensure that the practices to a large extent across the three platforms will be uniform, because the sellers, the buyers and the financiers would probably be common to a large extent on the three platforms. Now, having said this, as I told earlier, we have traversed a long journey. So, there are bound to be certain issues which will come up as we go forward. One critical issue had been that of settlement, because this is an area which requires a many-to-many settlement. So, the three entities together with the Reserve Bank of India and NPCI have sat down for many hours to arrive at a settlement mechanism which is seamless and which takes care of all the scenarios of settlement in a many-to-many scenario, in a many-to-many situation. That is already put in place. So, the financiers, the bankers of the MSMEs, the bankers of the buyers, they need not get too worried about the settlement aspect of it. One or two other issues are there, they relate to how to upload the assignment or registration of assignment onto SARSAI, the KYC issues. We are aware of these issues, we are examining these issues, but my request to all of you gathered here today is that don't let these issues come in the way of taking forward this major effort that has been put together by all the stakeholders. These issues will get resolved. Everybody is already aware and working on it, as I said, and they are not showstoppers because there are alternate mechanisms already available to meet the outcome, which, like whether it is for KYC or whether it is for registration on SARSAI. So, I do not want to take more time, let the other activities related to the launch of M1 continue. I wish everyone present here, my best wishes are there with everyone. I wish all of you great success in taking this event and taking this platform forward. So, I click it here.
Right.
Okay, so it is launched. Congratulations once again to the entire M1 team and all the stakeholders who would be participating on this platform. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mrs. Charulatakar, for your good wishes and inauguration of the exchange. We look forward for your continued support to make this exchange a contributor for India's economic growth. Now we're going to showcase the live platform and sample transaction done by the three participants on the exchange in a brief manner. Saurav Wadhwa, Director with Mind Solutions, will present the live platform for the audience. Over to you, Saurav.
Thank you, Sundeep. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be taking you through the transaction, which is a live transaction on the TREADS platform, which is a M1 TREADS platform from Mynd. There are essentially three participants on this platform: the corporate buyer, the seller, and the financer. So we'll be running a transaction on the reverse factoring process, which is between the buyer, seller, and the financiers. Let's begin. So as you will see on the screen, the buyer is going to be able to see all the transactions which are uploaded by his team, which are available to be submitted for the onward processing by the seller as well as the financer. So buyer's role starts by picking up the transaction from the screen. Now the buyer is going to be able to see all the details related to the invoice, which is the invoice number, value, and the various other aspects of the invoice. The buyer will need to essentially either approve or reject, as the case may be. So here the buyer is approving the transaction. Upon the approval, the authorization letter will pop up on the screen. The buyer can go through the letter and the various terms and conditions and can accept the letter by signing it digitally. Now this is a very important stage. So the buyer accepts the conversion of the invoice into a factor unit by digitally signing the transaction. Now it's the same digital signature which every corporate buyer has, which are going to be used here. Now upon the submission of this transaction, the transaction will now appear in the next stage, which is the supplier approval. The supplier is going to be able to see all the transaction in the likewise manner on the screen. The supplier is supposed to now accept or reject the transaction, as the case may be. We will approve this transaction for this demo. Now you will see again the screen will open up, which will be an authorization letter, which is again going to be digitally signed by the seller. Here we sign it digitally. Now you will see the factor is digitally signed and submitted for the onward bidding by the financiers. So we'll go to the financer screens now. So financer will essentially have two roles to play, which is the submission of the bid and the approval of the bid. So financer will have the submission of the bid will have 4 stages, which are essentially the steps to submitting a bid. So financer is going to be able to see the factoring unit details, the invoice details, the bank details, and if there are any documents to be uploaded. Now we'll proceed to submit the bid. As you can see, there is a window where the financer is going to be able to put the rate of interest essentially offered by the bank, which is the yield, and move to the next stage. The invoice details are visible here. These are the relevant bank details. And here the banker is going to be able to submit the bid. Now the bid has been successfully submitted. We go to the next stage, which is the approval by the financer. Again, the transactions are all listed here. So the approver is selecting the transaction, the factor. You can see all the details. And approve it for the bid to become available to the seller. Now you can see this approval will also need to be digitally signed. And now this bid has been completed. So now we move on to the next stage, which is the approval by the seller for the bids received. Now at this stage, the seller can choose from the various bids which he has received. And the deed of assignment opens up. The terms of the bids are mentioned here. The seller will need to digitally sign it. And submit the approval. So the bid has been successfully accepted, and this will result into the onward banking transaction, which is the exchange will be now generating a settlement file, which is by way of which the seller account will be credited and the bank account will be, the successful financier's account will be debited, and that will complete the process. So thank you everyone. I'll now pass it on to Sundeep back to move forward in the presentation.
Thanks, Saurav, for taking this opportunity to present the live demo. I will now request Jacob, who's a COO for the M1 Exchange, and to provide his insights on supply chain financing and how the exchange will scale up to fulfill the key requirements of the industry in times to come. Over to Jacob.
Hi, respected chief guest, esteemed invitees, Sundeep ji, Vivek ji, and all dear friends. Today we are making a humble beginning. We are joining hands with a few SME suppliers, a few buyers, and a few financiers, and starting a journey to find an effective solution to the liquidity challenge facing the industry, especially the small and medium businesses. Currently, there are thousands of small and medium enterprises who are unable to find a viable financing option to propel their businesses forward. The existing financial ecosystem is currently challenged to deliver an effective solution. The answer to this probably lies in the technology and the new initiatives proposed by the respected leaders of the financial system and RBI. We believe TREDS is the right step in that direction. TREDS will enable the small businesses to get funded.
Thanks, Jacob. I will now request Vivek, Founder Director of Mind Solutions, to present a vote of thanks. Over to you, Vivek.
So we hope that you enjoyed watching the launch of the M1 Exchange and have truly understood the potential it represents to change the playing field for all the participants, the suppliers, the corporates, and of course the banks. In today's age, when going digital is the buzzword, bringing online discounting to the Indian business world is an idea whose time has well and truly arrived. We sincerely hope that the full potential of this idea is realized in the coming days, and M1 becomes the new way of transacting business. On that note, I would like to place on record our sincere thanks once again to the team at RBI, to all the participants who spared their valuable time in attending today's event, and last but definitely not the least, to the absolutely top-notch team at Mind who has worked extremely hard to achieve the dream of M1. Let's have a loud round of applause for the team. Thank you all and have a good day.